There we are. And turn it over to Shanta. So everybody else, if you can mute and put questions in the chat or and Shanta can tell me whether you want to handle questions afterwards or kind of take them as you go.
Thanks, Sally. Usually I find that if the questions require a little bit more explanation, I'll probably leave those until the end. However, if there's something that I'm doing at the moment that you need clarification on, please feel free to unmute yourself and ask for that clarification. I'm good with that. I'll try and keep an eye on the chat if I can. But we all know that, Zoom decides to switch everything around. So
right, it's hard to do. So I usually try to say, hey, collect the questions in the chat so that we can make sure that
well, and that's what I'll do, Sally, is I'll let you sort of, decide. Like, I don't mind if people sort of, go, hey, I have a quick question, if they need to catch it at that moment. But if you think that there's something in the chat that I need to see beforehand, then by all means. Well, we can definitely do that.
All right, take it away.
All right, let me see if I can share my screen. And I've already got this in display mode, so this should be interesting to see how this works out. And of course, it just shifts everything. Can you see my screen now with the PowerPoints?
I have an entire monitor's worth of your screen.
Excellent. That's probably what I need to do. I'm good with that. I'll go through even a little bit more about myself, but I've given this talk since, oddly enough, I think this was my second WordCamp talk ever. And it has just gotten better and better and better as time goes on. But the beauty about this is that it has stood the test of time. Even though, the functionality in WordPress has changed a little bit, but this is one of those topics that is just hugely, hugely overlooked. And it is so disappointing sometimes when that happens. Sorry, I'm just trying to see where one of my other pieces is. That's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through sort of what I consider to be the basics, the lesson, if you will. And then I'm going to show you an example on a site that I typically use for this very talk. Okay. It's a test site that I use that I've already kind of built the content around that sort of idea. And I even have a case study now that I came up with yesterday. So unfortunately, I don't think they've been able to join us today, but I was so inspired by it yesterday that I said, I've got to do this. So we'll see how much time we get to do that. But I think I love using real world examples. And I think one of the times I did this as a workshop in Ottawa, I literally pulled somebody out of the audience and we just did the whole thing right then and there. So doing it when I haven't thought about it through all the way is actually one of the better ways of demonstrating this, because we get feedback from you. This is going to be a cooperative thing, right? We're going to see what the crowd thinks, right? Not crowdsourcing. Yeah, I guess crowdsourcing is the way to go. Anyway, let's see where we go. So the main idea that we are going to discuss today is around posts versus pages, and then categories versus tags. These are common things that are overlooked, that are misunderstood. And the way that I like to look at this is thinking of your content as being either static or dynamic. Okay. And first of all, I will apologize for the amount, my being Canadian, I'm going to apologize a lot. The amount of text that I have on here, I'm a former college professor, so I used to use these as the notes for my students. Okay. So there's going to be a lot of text. So you probably don't even have to write anything down most of the time, unless there's a quick note or a question you want to ask. But I will also post these slides and I'll give you the link afterwards in the meetup as well. So once you have got your categories and tags and posts and pages sort of at least figured out what they are, you can then edit the menu which is your main navigation. We'll talk mostly about what we call the structural navigation, which is your main navigation to guide people to where they need to be. And that's what this is all about. So the navigation and wayfinding is basically when somebody comes to your site, how do they find what they need without having to necessarily go to a search? Because if they don't know what's there, do they know even what to search for? Not necessarily. So the assumption here is that someone has landed on your homepage and you want to guide them in a particular direction. That's what this is all about. And organizing your content in such a way that people can figure out what they want. And are you the best, site for what they want? So I'll give you a quick introduction. We'll talk about pages and posts, the categories and tags. I'll take you through a quick live demo. Then we may take some questions right around there. And then I'll try and do the case study afterwards. Does that sound okay to everybody? Okay, great. Marilyn, did you have a question? Nope, you're good? Okay, all right, we'll keep going then. All right, good, perfect. So if you want to find me, my Twitter handle is shanta.ca. My email is shanta@namara.com. And my website, of course, is namara.com. And the quick story about this is my slide deck. This was what I consider to be my contributor day. This was in Milwaukee in 2015. We actually built a deck. So we actually had to slide the pieces of wood into there. So this is technically my slide deck. Yeah, you can ask Mark Benzakein about how that came about. But anyway, so this is me. I'm the president and CEO at Namara Technologies, Inc. I'm the co-organizer for WordPress and WordCamp Hamilton. The lovely Hamu you see behind me is our local WAPU. We call him Hamu. This was the WordCamp Hamu for 2019, which is the last camp that we had live. Again, I've given more than 40 WordCamp talks worldwide now, I can honestly say, because I gave one at WordCamp India now. And I'm a former professor of web design and development at Sheridan College. And I also did Mohawk College as well. Okay. Your mission, get out some Post-it notes if you have them. If you don't, that's okay too. Maybe just tear up some pieces of paper. The goal here is to be able to move stuff around. Okay. So if you don't necessarily have Post-it notes, I love them personally, and I think it's the best way to do this exercise. Throughout this talk, what I want you to do, and I think it was Elizabeth who said that she wanted to start from scratch. So this is especially for her. By the way, she's one of my fangirls. I think this is like the third talk of mine she's attended. And I love you for it. Thank you. Your goal is to write down all of the things that you would expect to find on your website. And I'm talking more general buckets, okay? It may not be a specific title of a blog post or anything like that, but we're talking about main topics, right? So I've listed some of them here. And again, these are not necessarily ones you would find on the same site, but these are some examples that I like to use depending on what it is that you do for your business or whichever site you're building. About us, recipes, contacts, services, events, products, portfolio. The one I will ask you not to use for the purposes of this exercise is blog. Okay. Think about it this way. When you go to someone's site, how often do you click on something that says blog? Right now, usually when I do this in person, I ask, the room, how many people do that? So let's try this. If you can do this, hands up. How many of you actually go to a website? When you go to a website, let's say it's for the first time, how many times do you actually click on the link that says blog? 1, 2. That's about what I usually get. Okay. Blog doesn't tell me what the topic is. It just tells me what all of this stuff is. And I'll give you another example in a few minutes when we go through this, but for the moment, suspend belief and try and not use the term blog as one of your topic items. Okay. Does that make sense? Okay. So as I said, you're going to have all these Post-it notes. Doesn't matter what color they are. You may want to, if you do have two different colors, that will be helpful later on. Okay. You're going to say, okay, this is a type of piece of information that I would have on here, like events or products or things to do, places to go, all kinds of things. Okay. And there is no one right answer to this. Okay. But the biggest thing you want to keep in your head, and I know that somebody said, was it Sandy, who is a librarian, right? So you'll get this. It should only be, you need to organize it by a particular topic. Okay. So anyway, I'll give you an example in a few minutes, but for now, all you need to do is basically just pick up a Post-it note, write it down, and just keep going and put them down and just think about it. Okay. You will continually do this. This is not a one and done type of exercise. You will think about this for days. I spent 3 hours once with the president of one of our nonprofits going through this exercise. It can be that challenging. Okay. So don't despair if you don't get this right off the bat. And this is why I like to provide a recording, because you go back to it and you go, oh, wait a minute, I forgot this other thing. Okay. So don't be surprised if you go back to them. Okay. This is a real live example. You won't have to read them. So don't worry if you can't read them, but the goal here is to see that there were categories, pages, and maybe some future things that we were talking about. And then what we did is we took all those little Post-it notes and then put them into a menu structure. So this is how it works. You don't try and build the menu before you know what your content is. You have to know the content first. Now, that doesn't mean that it's immovable. It doesn't mean that it's etched in stone, but you have to have somewhere to start with. Okay. And just because it's structured in a certain way in your back end doesn't mean that it's necessarily structured that way in your menu. So the two, even though we will go through that process, a lot of the thinking is done up front. Okay. And this is sort of the process that I'm going to take you through today. So this will be the website that we're going to go to later on. Okay. I'll post this afterwards as well. This is just my WordCamp test site that we can go to afterwards. So if you ever want to see like what happens when I refresh it, that'll be the site we go to. Okay. This is the money shot, people. 3, 5, and 7. 3 clicks to where you need to be. And no more than 5 to 7 items in a list. Right? We've all heard that if you have more than 7 items, people start to forget, right? This is a common sort of psychological thing. So as we go through this, and as we structure the menus and sub-menus and whatever things come about, there are very, very few exceptions. Some of those exceptions are typically very large institutions. Learning universities, higher education, hospitals, and health institutions. Again, very, very few exceptions where you have that level of more than 3 clicks to where you need to be. If you even think about something like Amazon, you can usually even get to whatever it is that you're looking for within a reasonable amount of clicks, usually three clicks, right? So as you go through this, I have not yet, other than those sort of higher education or higher institutions, have I run into a site where we cannot implement the 3-5-7 principle. Okay. Now these are guidelines, and I'll show you what that means as we go through, but just keep in mind the numbers 3, 5, and 7. Okay. Commit that to memory. So pages versus posts. This is a real challenge for many people. Okay. If you think of pages as being more static information, and posts I like to call time sensitive. Now, that doesn't mean that because you posted it a year ago, it's no longer valid. Not necessarily. But usually when you're writing a post, it's done because of the time in which you are sitting, or the time at which this thing happened or will happen. Okay. So let me give you an example. A page would be about us. Now, an about us page typically on a day-to-day basis doesn't change, does it? We might have won an award. We might have done something that we have to change our profile. Maybe it's our picture. Would that be something that you would necessarily send out on social media? Not really. It's a change, but you might write a post about that award that you won and what event it was at and what it was for and things like that at the time at which you won it. So the post would probably say, hey guys, I was awarded this thing and blah, blah, blah. And I've updated my about page to reflect that. And then you would link to the about page. That is the type of thing you would send out on social media. Does that make sense? Another example might be an event like this one. I might say, I spoke at the East Bay WordPress meetup the other day. And even if you don't say the words the other day, it's implied. Does that make sense? Or I'm going to be speaking at, or this thing happened to me the other day, or I went somewhere the other day. So that's what I mean by time sensitive. It's almost like you can put a pin in it and say this happened on this particular time. Okay. Another way of looking at this is that if you go to a site, let's say you're looking up technical support. That technical support item, if it's 10 years old, how likely is it that it's going to be relevant to you? Depending on what it is, it may not be relevant at all. Especially if you're looking up something like WordPress, it could be like WordPress 3.8, right? So posts are what I like to call more time sensitive. They are dynamic. They are ever changing, even though the post itself doesn't change, but it evolves over time. It's a living, breathing thing. Whereas the pages tend to be more static and are what I like to call some almost self-contained. Now you can have sub pages, but they don't necessarily continue to live on and on and on and add to and add. That's what the posts are for. Does that make sense? It's a challenging thing sometimes to sort of get. Okay, I'm going to keep going. No questions so far? Okay, I'll keep going. So what you're going to do now is those Post-it notes that you have. I want you to think about what I just told you about pages and posts. And I want you to think about which of those Post-it notes belongs under pages and which ones would become posts. The challenge is it can only go in one of the other. Okay. So I want you to think for a second about what is more static and what is more dynamic. What are things that are going to change over time? Okay. Any questions so far? I see something in the chat, but let's see if that's for.
Oh, it's just my comment on the content type decision tree. I keep planning to actually work out about how do I decide? Is it a page? Is it a post? Is it a custom post type? Is it a block? Because now we have that added complication.
Right. Yeah. And that is the next sort of the next level of thinking to me is sort of the custom post type and the hierarchies and and all that kind of stuff.
But you're so right. People get this wrong just with pages and posts.
Right, right. So this is where I like to start. And I did give a talk afterwards, sort of based on this, about custom post types and about hierarchies and taxonomies and things like that. But I like to start with what WordPress has already presented us with right out of the box. But you're absolutely right. It does go beyond this. But this I find is even challenging for some people. So if you start throwing custom post types at them, their head explodes. And we can talk about that afterwards. I'm happy to do that. But yeah, you're absolutely right, for sure. Any questions so far otherwise? No, we're good.
Oh, and
Oh.
I see one from Eliza that says, wouldn't an individual product be the post level? And that is the way that e-commerce systems work when you're selling products, because you may have so many, you organize them by categories. But I have seen websites where people, they only have a couple of products and they want you to like call them to order because it's some really big ticket item, and they just make pages for them.
Yeah. And you're not wrong. I've given an example here. This is, again, not etched in stone necessarily. So let's think about it this way. Even though, and I would think about products, depending on which system you're using, yes, they are more of a post type idea that are put into categories. But when you actually dig into them, they're probably more of a custom post type called a product. And they have their own life and their own sort of thing. However, all of those pieces would probably go on a single page called products, which is where I've used this example. You're not wrong, but the example that
You
I'm
set up
giving
a
here is
page
sort of
that's
that
like
mentality.
shop, right? If you install
Shop,
WooCommerce, it
exactly.
creates a page
and it
called
contains
shop,
all of that other stuff. Yes,
and then
exactly.
then it tells all of its stuff to show up there.
Right, exactly. So, and again, e-commerce is where it gets a little bit muddy, but you know, we can still work with it. Yeah, yeah. Does that make sense? So they'd be subpages? Not necessarily. No, they would probably be, again, we're talking more about sort of like a custom post type, and depending on the e-commerce system you're using, they would actually be more similar to posts that are in various categories of products that are then put onto a product page, if that makes sense. Does that follow?
Yeah.
Okay.
Your top level thing is a page, and
yes,
then the products show up on it. It's
right.
a little bit it's a little bit muddy, and the same thing may happen with things like events and so on. But I also have a client now where they're like, well, look, we have 2 events a year. We don't want to use a whole event system. We just want to make it a blog post category, and you can look at the category archive for events.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. The other thing here that you'll notice is the portfolio is actually under categories. Okay. You may not necessarily have a category called portfolio, but what you might have, let's say, for example, and this is where it gets tricky, as we were just talking about. How deep in the hierarchy do you go? For example, if I run and this is the example I wanted to give earlier. If I run a travel site, okay, let's say that I run a travel site for Spain, Italy, and Portugal. Okay. Now, I may talk about hotels, I may talk about restaurants, I may talk about flights, travel, like other modes of transportation, that kind of thing. I can organize my site 2 different ways. And the taxonomy, which is the word that kind of scares people, is, and I'm sure that Sandy sort of gets this, being in the library system. The question you want to ask yourself is, how do I want to organize these items? Because I can do that one of 2 ways, at least based on the example I've given. And that will depend on who your clients are. There is no one right answer to this. So for example, let's say that I am a traveler and I talk about hotels, I talk about modes of transportation, I talk about restaurants and things to see. And my main focus is in Spain, Portugal, and Italy. Okay. I can either categorize my posts by Italy, Spain, and Portugal. So that if I am a visitor to the site, and let's say that I don't give a damn about Spain, but I want to know about Italy, well, then there's probably going to be a menu item that says Italy that will give me all of the information that I need, right? That's one option. The second option is that I go to my other set of taxonomy, which basically says, do I want to know about modes of transportation? Do I want to read about restaurants? Do I want to read about things to do? And do I want to read about hotels? So that could be all of my headings. And under that, I might have a hotel about in Italy. I might have a hotel in here. It depends on what your clientele is going to want. Using the same example, I'm going to go back to my original point about blog. Let's say that I have just come back from Italy and all of my posts, say over the last month, have been about Italy. And the thing in my menu says, or the item in my menu just says blog. And I go to blog and it lists all of my blog posts. What if all of my stuff is about Italy and you want to get to Spain? You would then have to keep scrolling down to find something on Spain. The person that has visited your site has come to something that they don't care about. And you've buried it under one item called blog that doesn't even tell me what it's about. By using categories in this fashion, you're actually driving people to what they want to read faster. They don't have to click on blog and go all the way down the page to find what it is that they want. They don't have to use search to necessarily show potentially unrelated items, right? You're guiding them down a path. You're handing it to them on a silver platter. So for example, again, if I come to the site and let's say I want to read about Italy, I might go to Italy, and under that, there might be about hotels, about modes of transportation, about places to eat and things to do related to Italy. Does that make sense? Okay. So the default is not necessarily to have blog. The default in WordPress, and Sally, I'm sorry, I haven't read through your answer, but I wanted to at least address this. By default, WordPress puts all your latest posts on your homepage. So they would literally be just in reverse chronological order with the most recent one first, and it's completely unorganized. That's it. The only organization that it understands right now is reverse chronological order. That's it.
Which is just like your social media feed, if you think
just like your social media feed. Exactly. So what you are doing is you're actually telling WordPress, no, I want it to go in a certain way. I want to group similar items together. And that's what this exercise does. This is the real heart of what we're doing. Does that make sense to everybody? Are there any questions about this? I'm happy to pause here for a moment, because this is sort of the aha moment that I usually get. So far, so good? Yeah? I can keep going? Okay, I'll keep going. So if you do happen to have a second color of Post-it note, then what you can do now is take one of those two things, right? Whether it be the categories or the pages, and change the color. Okay, you can just take out a different color. Like I have, blue and I have yellow, right? And so what I would do is if let's say I wrote them all in yellow, I would take whichever one I have less of and then just write them on a blue one and know that those are categories and these might be pages. Does that make sense? Okay. I like to use a program called Miro. It's like a mind mapping tool. And I'm going to show you how that works as well with our example later today, where I can just change them around a lot. You know, when I usually do this in person, I actually have like the big ass post-it notes that I can literally use a marker with and put them on a wall. But in this case, I actually have one that I can use to show you how this works in a live environment. Okay. So far, so good then? Okay, this is the easiest step, right? Just change the color of one of them. So now we're going to talk about categories versus tags. We're going to shift a little bit. Categories and tags are only applied for the purposes of our discussion today, are not applied to pages. They are only applied to posts. Okay. Remember how I said earlier, pages tend to be standalone pieces of information. When you say about us, that's what it is. That's all it is, right? It is self-contained. It doesn't need to be changed on a regular basis. Categories might be Italy, Spain, Portugal. I could write about a hotel and then say this is its main category is Italy. Now you can have subcategories. Okay. So you may say I have subcategories of Italy and then Northern Italy, Southern Italy, whatever those pieces might be. And then the post you would write, let's say about a hotel or whatever the thing might be, those might even be your subcategories. It can get a bit complicated though. So I urge you to just caution with that, because otherwise then you're duplicating categories. So what I would suggest that you do if you were doing this example, let's say you did Italy, and then you had a subcategory called Northern Italy and Southern Italy. Your categories should follow a similar grouping methodology. Okay. Then if you're writing about a hotel or a mode of transportation or whatever that thing is, whatever post you have is where you add a tag. So the tags are like keywords. Let me shift for a moment to a different example. And I want you to think about doing this more as a real estate site. Okay. You may have a category called townhouses, another one called condos, another one called freehold. And you may have multiple listings under these, and a tag that you may have is a fireplace. Okay. It's not necessarily something that people are going to search for in a main navigation menu, but it might be something that they say, you know what, I really want to have a fireplace in my thing. So I want to see what's available in that. So they may find a post that has a tag called fireplace in WordPress, click on fireplace, and that will automatically pull up all of the related posts that have fireplace in them. And they may not all be listings either. Maybe that real estate agent has written a post about the dangers of having a fireplace or the benefits of putting in a fireplace or whatever that topic is. But the relationship between all of these things, whether it's a listing or whether it's advice or renovations, is the thing that ties them together is fireplace. So a tag is what we call a non-hierarchical taxonomy, meaning it can be put over there, and over there. Categories tend to follow a method of hierarchy, very much like an organizational chart in an organization. There's only one CEO. And then there are the C levels, and then there are the next level down, and then the next level down. And they're all categorized into those areas, right? They're all put into a department. You are in that department. You're not in that department. Does that make sense? So a category typically should only a post that you write should only fall into one category. It can have multiple tags, usually about 5 to 7 tags. It's almost like a little thread that goes through your blog that relates stuff that has a similar keyword to it, but it is not the major categorization of that particular blog post. So far, so good. Any questions so far? Because again, this is one of those pivotal sort of moments where people can get confused. Okay.
I've inherited a lot of websites where there were a ton of tags that only appeared on one post because people hear the word keywords and they're like, I'll throw everything in here that I think might be good for SEO.
Well, and it's not to say that having like one tag on one post is going to do any damage. I'm okay with that. It's a lot more free flowing than the categories are. The categories you really, really want to think about over and over and over before you do that, because that forms the structure of your site, right? But, using, like I say, keywords or tags, if you have it on one and not another, well, then if you click on that and you only see one, okay, that's the only one. But having a tag that has nothing, well, then maybe you need to clean it up. Tony, did you have a question?
Yeah, I guess I'm off mute. So I was just thinking about your example of a real estate site. I'm wondering if you use a tag to change a category. So a real estate agent might have 14 homes for sale right now.
Sure.
She might have a category of current listings. She might also have a category of past listings. It's just like a compendium of everything she sold. So somebody might want to see what's in the same neighborhood she's handled before. So would a tag be how she would transfer that item? Like if a tag sold, that then it might transfer into a different category.
So you don't use a tag to transfer into a different category.
Okay.
You would have to change the category itself, which I don't recommend.
Well, but at some point she'd have to move a listing once it's sold into the past category.
So the way that I did the real estate site that I did is I didn't necessarily have current and past sales, which is not to say that you can't have them. Yeah. The one that I did, I categorized based on the type of dwelling. So like I said, I had freehold, I had condominium, and I think townhouse or semi-detached.
Yeah.
And then I had townhouse. What's that?
Those categories will never change. It'll always
be. Yeah. And to me, that is the key here. Now, if the person, like, let's say the agent, for example, only deals, and this is a beautiful example. What if the agent only deals in condominiums? Do they need to have a category called freehold? Nope. Do they need to have a category called townhouses? Nope. So this eliminates the need for a menu item or even a category in itself called condos. Every subcategory that would normally be in that, let's say it's by region after that, like condos that are in East Bay, condos that are in, I don't know, give me another region that's San in your neighborhood.
Marin.
Yeah.
What was it?
San Francisco, Marin.
San Francisco. Okay. So you might have some that are in like downtown, East Bay, and then San Francisco. Now you're talking. So you don't even need to have condo in the main menu. That second level of categories now moves up because then the whole site is going to be dedicated to sales of real estate that are condos because that's what they do. Does that make sense? So then all that would show in the menu are the locations of where those things are. Going back to the travel example, if going, I originally had Spain, Portugal, and Italy. What if my main focus is only Italy? Do I need to have a category called Italy? Nope. I just take everything that was underneath that and raise it up one level above that. to surface the topics that I want my viewers to see. So going back to your question, Tony, I would probably say that there is a different way that you could flag those items, moving them from one to the other, that might actually get into something like a custom post type. Because the real estate listings that I did for my demo site were actually a custom post type. And it is something that I would call a custom taxonomy. And it's almost like a toggle, right? It's either for sale or it's sold, or even better yet, that it's unlisted. And if it becomes unlisted, it's just not shown or whatever.
Yeah.
So that you don't
years-
necessarily have to do it again.
Right. Years and years ago, we built a website, like this was like 2013. We built a website for a local company that sold RVs and, motorhomes and that kind of thing. And what we did was add just a custom field where you could check that it was sold, and then a big sold banner would show over it, would
Right.
go over it. And the idea behind that was, well, they didn't have a million offerings at once. But if you could see that this has been sold and you can come back and one that was available last week has been sold, it means people are buying them. And if you have something to
Yes.
sell, you might want to go to them.
No, I agree with you. I think using the sold versus not sold or for sale would probably, I would use it as a custom field of some sort, because that's going to be something that's going to change over time. The goal of what we're talking about here is planning out your content so that you don't have to change it. Does that make sense?
Well, it makes sense. It's just what was occurring to me, like in the real estate example, it could be, items that are for sale, that are not for sale. In the RV example, I might be looking for it in an RV, and a week later, I want to start taking action on it and thinking about, I want that one. It'd be nice to be able to see that it's no longer available, so I can just let it go rather than hunting around wondering why I can't find it.
Let
And
me
in
ask you.
the case of my business, like I might post current clients and past clients, and when I finish up an engagement, but I would think that using the tag as a switch would be the easiest way to basically automate that function. So when I say put a tag out that this item is sold, then I don't have to manually switch the category.
So again, I would not switch the category.
I'm hearing that. I'm
Yeah.
just
Okay.
trying to
The
validate.
tag part also, you don't necessarily want to keep switching back and forth, right? I think you would want, as Sally recommended, you would actually use something like a custom tag or a custom field rather.
Toggle.
So it's almost like it's a separate entity or a separate taxonomy,
Well,
a separate way of categorizing those items.
It's a database switch. It's part of the database for
It's
your
actually in a
category,
separate database altogether, actually.
but it's for your category. So my category of
No.
homes, no?
No, not necessarily. It actually creates a separate database. So,
Okay.
and I think Sally's right though, is that you would probably have that advanced custom field or a custom field that would basically be a toggle. It's either one or the other. Because here's why I suggest that. When you come to the homepage of a real estate site, do they necessarily have a menu item that says sold items?
Well, you do on the window display when you go to the real estate office, but I don't see that very often. I don't
Right.
look at real estate sites, so I don't know.
So when you go to the homepage of someone's real estate site, you typically don't see a particular menu item that says sold items. You're more than likely going to see a listing or a bunch of listings or cards, if you will, almost like the window idea, right? Where it's going to show everything. And it'll just say this one's sold or not sold, this one's sold or not sold. If somebody is looking for something for sale, then they will more than likely click on an item potentially in the menu that's for sale. But they are typically not, I think, going to click on something that has already sold. because they're going to see that on the homepage already, right? Usually if somebody goes to the site, the first thing they're going to want to do is look at what's for sale. And like Sally said, is that if they are looking at the homepage and the item that they see is on the homepage and it's marked sold, well, then it's gone. Like it's, I may want more info on it. I can click on it. But they're typically not going to just look at a bunch of sold listings. They're going to look at either for sale listings because they're going to action on it. They're going to do something about it, right? They may see those sold items on the homepage, and there may be a menu item that says for sale, which would then filter out the sold items. But it would probably be a separate field outside of categories and tags, because once you've created a post and put it into those categories and tags, you don't want to start screwing with them. This would be a separate level of taxonomy that is basically a binary operation. It's either for sale or it's not. That's
Now,
what I would do.
Yeah, you technically could go and change the category. It's just not necessarily the best way to handle it. And if you get into stuff like, products, when you set up an e-commerce platform, there's like a thing for like inventory and stock management. And do you want to turn this on? And do you want to, and then a setting in your store, like, do you want to display products even if they're out of stock or not? And
I have a couple things to point out. One, that categories and tags are actually in the same database, but
yeah, they're in different
yes,
tables.
they are. But the advanced custom fields and custom fields are elsewhere, though.
Those to set up an advanced custom field, I think of that as defining the functionality of the type of post you're doing. So, if you have a real estate post, you might want to have extra fields for like a image gallery that always shows up on the editor or something. It's kind of like you're designing the layout for your storefront window in this example. And the reason why I wouldn't use a separate post type for sold is because you have to recreate the post after you sell it. And it's much easier to just change the tag. And so I think in this situation, I would use a tag to indicate sold, and have done that before for other clients. So I don't think it's that unusual.
Yeah, I'm not saying that using the tags is wrong, and it's a simple way to do it, but I just don't like screwing around with them after you've already created it.
Yeah, I don't see a disadvantage to it unless there's like an SEO component or something. The fact is, like, you can make a menu item based on tags if you want to list all your sold tags in one area. So it's just another way to arrange content depending on the situation.
Well, and I like Sally's example, though, is that if you use the advanced custom field, you can also, if it's, you can add conditions.
Oh,
to
we
it.
were so primitive. We just used a
all
regular
that kind of stuff.
custom field.
No,
I think
but
they
you're
just said
absolutely right.
you just like filled out yes or one or something in the field.
Yeah, and the beauty about using something like an advanced custom field is that there are so many conditions that can go along with it. Like it's a beautiful functionality. Like I'm really kind of downplaying it, but
I love ACM. We just haven't discovered it yet.
Yeah, no, and things like putting a banner on it, like the price comes down, right? Because you may not be allowed to say how much it was sold for, right? So by taking out the tag, that doesn't fix that. And then you have to go in and do all of those fun things. So if you really wanted to get super cute on this, if you will, you put it into an advanced custom field. And if the advanced custom field says it's sold, it turns off the price, it puts a banner on it. It does a lot more functionality to it that I think are more relevant to those real estate agents. Because I don't know about you guys, but in Canada, you cannot say how much it was sold for.
Well,
this is America. People want to brag about how much it's sold.
No, don't get me wrong. They can say that it was sold above asking, or it was sold for 10% above asking or whatever, but they cannot put the exact amount.
Interesting.
So Tony, to go back to your original thing, yes, if you want to just be really quick and dirty about it, I would go with the tag, not a category. But if you want to be proper and formal about the thing, I would look at something like an advanced custom field. And you would be looking, if you're actually building out a listing, like Nick suggested, is you have a custom post type. And again, that was the lesson that I did. And you have fields that show price and all of these other little things and how many bedrooms, and it gets really complex.
Yeah,
The
I mean,
beauty
this is
that
why.
if you use an advanced custom field that says sold, you can then add functionality to it that says, if this thing is sold, it puts a sold banner on there, it takes the price off, it puts it elsewhere, and it takes off a bunch of stuff that is no longer available. So
Yeah,
the simple answer, yeah, you could use it as a tag. I wouldn't.
Yeah,
That's my
it depends a
simple.
lot on like what's your budget, or if you're
Exactly.
building it yourself, what's your
Exactly.
level of technical skill.
Mhm.
And it is one reason that people do things like say, hey, I'm going to install a plugin for events.
Yeah.
Because in that plugin, there's already the code,
Mhm.
which says,
Mhm.
when you go to the main event page, you will see events that have a current or future date. But, there's also, if people want to see past events, there's like the little indicator, you can see the past events over here, and it will automatically expire the ones that are over with. And you don't have to worry about doing anything to them. That just happens as part of how somebody has set it up.
Right.
But yeah, number one, back in the day, for a while we only had posts and pages and categories and tags, and so you had to figure out how are we going to do it just with this. And also, yeah, sometimes you're going to do the quick and dirty thing that's not necessarily ideal because of constraints or your budget or your time or the type of your site or just like how important it is or isn't.
There's also advantages to using ACF to switch things, because then you have to interact with the post meta fields, which can kind of be a bummer. Like when you're actually programming the templates. And
yeah, so it stuff depends. So if you can, yeah, I mean, if you've got an e-commerce system, then it knows when you've sold something, and it knows what your stock is. I assume, although I haven't worked with like IDX systems for real estate, that kind of thing also happens, that your official listing gets updated in their database when something has sold, because that all is being tracked. And so either, if you have a real estate website that's pulling from that, it's gonna flag something as sold or remove it or whatever it's set up to do. And if you're dealing with something like a real estate website where you're selling really high ticket items and presumably there's quite a bit of money in it, it's worth investing in something that's got the extra code in it to handle that.
Let me go with this, Tony. If you want, I will give you the link for the talk that I did specifically on that topic. And it uses a real estate site as an example for custom post types. And I think even if you don't use them, I think the understanding would be very helpful. Does that sound like something you'd like to see later on? I can give you the link.
No, yeah, I appreciate it. I'm just, I'm new at this. I'm just looking
Sure.
for, I was just sort of off the cuff thinking like, geez, it seems like that would be an easy thing for a beginner to do.
Yeah. No, you're right.
You are totally correct on that.
Correct. So in, like I said earlier, in answer to your question, I would not change the category. I would, if you have to, like, if you want to get like really simple and dirty, do the tag.
Right.
But I would not do the category. That would be my answer.
Yeah. So yeah, I'm just trying to think out loud and see if I'm understanding the implications of these things, and I think I was. So I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, and the example that we were talking about, like the custom put, that's next level thinking. I agree.
It's good. It's good.
And I guess I wanted to point that out because, if we just give you the down and dirty, like simplest way to do it, then we don't grow. And we also don't learn about, like, just because you can doesn't mean you should. It's always been my method. So, and we can definitely go into that afterwards if you want, but if you absolutely have to, go with the tag, not the category.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes
sounds
sense?
good. Yep, all good.
Anyone else have any questions before I keep going? Did Sally have one? Yes, no? Okay, I'll keep going then. So the menus themselves can contain categories, pages, external links. They can also contain posts, but you'll notice I did not put it here because I don't like it. I don't believe that it should be there. Again, just like we were talking about, just because you can doesn't mean that you should. Even though the menu is not set in stone, these things should be planned out. They should be thought out. They should be things that you don't play around with every day, right? But if you have a shift in your business or you have a shift in what you're looking at, yes, of course, you're going to change your menu depending on things like, you know, if you get some of your Google Analytics back and you find out that people are looking more at Italy instead of Spain, well, then, yeah, of course, you're going to want to move that thing up based on data. But I still don't know why I would want to put, I have not seen a case yet, why I would want to put a post link into a menu. Nobody's been able to provide me with a case study for that. I still don't understand it. So to me, you would want to put either categories, pages, or external/custom links, okay, in a menu. How many menus you can have and the location of those menus depend on the theme itself, okay? So whatever it is that you're going to do, you want to make sure that you choose the theme first, okay? And then determine from the theme how many menus you can have and where they are placed, like at the top menu, the footer menu, sidebar menus, all of those kinds of things, okay? But those are determined by the theme itself. Does that make sense?
Well, you can always put menus into sidebars because you can create them as widgets.
Sure.
And presumably you can, but if you want, you know, a horizontal menu, that is something that your theme does. A number of themes now give you some options about, do you want to use, you know, all of the, which ones of these menus do you want to use? And sometimes like, where do you want to put it?
Correct.
But yeah, traditionally that's a thing that gets changed in your, gets set in your theme, is where are your sort of permanent menus.
Correct. Correct. Okay. So the fourth step in this process, there are 5, and this is almost the last one. So now you have your categories and you have your pages and you've recolored one or the other of those items. And again, what I've shown you here is not necessarily exactly a site that you would see. But what I wanted to demonstrate is that the menu doesn't necessarily follow the hierarchy that you've created. Okay, so you could have a page at the very top of the menu or as the main menu item, and then the sub menu items could very well be categories or subcategories. But typically you're going to find pages and subpages or categories and subcategories. And again, just because you can doesn't mean you should, but the idea here is to now use that 3-5-7 rule that we were talking about and plan out your menu to guide your users through your website in 3 clicks or less. And so that you only have 5 to 7 items in each list. So that means that under products and recipes, I could have one more sub item to get them to where they want to be. So let's say recipes, desserts. And then I should see more or less the content that I'm dealing with or that I want to see. That's 1, 2, 3. In the list of, say, under products, I shouldn't see more than 7 items. So 5 to 7 items across the top, no more than 5 to 7 items in the list, and no more than 3 deep. Does that make sense? And again, there may be multiple clicks after that, but at least you've guided your user to the main area of where they want to be, right? They're not completely lost. They're invested by this point. That's the goal. Does that make sense? Okay. So this would be your menu using your Post-it notes. Okay. Now what you're going to do is create the hierarchy that you've just thought through with these lovely Post-it notes. And you are now going to create that menu in the exact same method that you've used with these Post-it notes. So all the thinking is done. Okay. You've already created your pages. You now can create your subpages or organize them, subcategories, etc. And then you are going to mimic that into your menu. The one thing this does not show is if you have a category like we were talking about earlier, Italy, and then you have a subcategory called Northern Italy and Southern Italy, you will want to create those categories first using, I think it's under posts and then categories. You'll want to create these categories and these pages first, because if you don't publish those items, you can't use them in the menu. So a draft post a draft page, or if there's no category, WordPress cannot put it into the menu.
Yes. If there are no posts in the category archive will not show up in your menu.
Well, I think it will, but it just won't show anything.
No, I was just trying to
itself.
select
Yeah.
something.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, I haven't, and it wasn't there, right?
Oh, really? Okay. Yeah.
I think it was a product category and it wasn't there. And I thought, oh, uh-oh.
Okay.
And then I realized I had created the category, but I hadn't put anything in it.
Okay. So you need to have items within that. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Okay. Questions about that? I'm going to actually show you how this works. We're good so far? Okay. I'm hearing silence, so I'm going to assume that's what we want. So I've already opened this, and I'll have a couple of slides after this on some resources, and I'll see if I can find that talk as well. So let me go here and all right. Can you guys still see my screen?
No, I think you need to.
I need to reshare it then.
Yeah.
Okay. That's fine.
Reshare when you get to the right window that you want to share.
Yeah. So which one do I want to go with? I'm going to go with that one first. Okay. So you can see this one here. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to reload this. Just want to cancel that. Okay. I just want to check one thing here. Bear with me for one moment. Ah, now I know why. Okay. So when you currently go to the site, this is what you're going to see. Okay, and I'll take this and I'll actually put it into the chat so you guys can follow along if you want. Okay. We're going to rebuild this menu. Okay, but I wanted you to see what happens when I change the menu and there's nothing in it. Okay. By default, you would see all of the pages that you've created, as well as on the main page, it would usually be all the blog posts that you've written. So when you actually think about it, there is no real organization when you start this. Okay. And what I'm going to show you is that last step, the number 5 step, where you actually create the menu. And then I'll show you the quick case study that we're going to talk about. Okay. So right now I've created this menu called East Bay for our demonstration purposes today. And there's nothing in it, right? When you go to manage locations, this is what I was talking about when it depends on the theme. This particular theme has a primary menu and a secondary menu, like a social menu. So I've actually created a social menu that has my Facebook and GitHub and whatever that thing is. That is not what we're going to focus on. We are focusing on what I'd like to call the primary, or in more information architecture terms, the structural menu that guides your users to what they want to see. Okay. Right now, it's using this menu that I created originally called Hamu. Okay, because I was doing this demo for the Hamilton guys. So we are going to edit the East Bay menu that I'm going to create. And I'm going to tell it I want that menu to appear in the primary menu, which is up here. Okay, so we're going to go through and recreate this based on what I've just taught you. Does that make sense? Okay. So I'm going to change this and I'm going to make this the East Bay menu and save the changes. And I'm under appearance and menus. You can do this under customize. I don't like it. I prefer this because I feel like I have far more control over what it is that I'm putting into my menus. Okay, so this is under appearance and menus, and this was just manage locations. So now that I've made the primary menu East Bay and I've saved the changes, when I reload this, there's nothing there. So if you reload your page right now, that's what you'll see. Does that make sense? Questions so far? All right. So I'm going to edit the menu now. And you'll notice here that there's a ton of stuff that I can put in here. Okay. We are just going to focus on the categories and the pages. That's it. Okay. Now I'm not going to add everything in here because I've added some of the stuff that I'm going to use for my demo afterwards, or the real stuff. I'm going to just recreate the menu that I just built for this site. Okay. So I'm going to look at view all. Okay. The about me, I've actually set to be my front page. Okay. You'll notice that there is a posts page that you can now set, which would show all of your blog posts. Typically it's called blog. Don't use it. That is my humble opinion. There are some that will disagree, and that's okay. But again, if we just gone through an exercise where we have divided our content in such a way to drive the traffic to the content sooner and in a much more organized fashion than just dumping it all into something called blog. And remember, we only have 5 to 7 items that we can put in our menu. That real estate is extremely valuable, right? You want to use that in such a way that it will drive the traffic the way you want it to be. So I'm going to go through this really quickly, only because I know the content here. Okay. So I'm going to go through the pages first. Keep in mind that so I've got the about me, the contact page. I think that was it for this one. Okay. So about me and contact. And I'm going to add those to the menu. Okay. So far, so good. Okay. The categories that I'm going to add are all very, very different. It's the most important of multiple tags. I'd like to think of it as the most important categorization, or the most important bucket that you would put something into. That's the way I would sort of go about it. Does that make sense, Dave? Let me see if I can go through this, and it might answer your question.
Sorry, I
No,
have
it's okay.
a question.
Go
Is
ahead,
there
Nick.
any like way, or like, is there any general rule for determining what's the most important, like,
No.
content or anything? Like, should there always be like a home link or something up there?
Well, that's another, actually, you're right, because that actually was something I should have put in here.
Or is it just like the logo for the site? Like that, and most
No,
of that just
no,
takes.
actually,
I always put in a link that says home.
yeah, no, there definitely should be. I actually used to think no, because yes, you're absolutely right. People would typically go to the logo and use that. But I also then learned from an accessibility standpoint, it's bad to not put in home. And I think for this particular one, I think there used to be actually a home thing on here.
Yeah, I mean, I think it is just the, yeah, there used to be one that just said home, but
Just
I
said,
think,
like, it used
I
to be
think
under a
now it's
custom
just,
link.
I think it's now it just shows up under, yeah, you know, whatever is front page is going to be what shows up when you don't type anything after it.
Okay.
So if you go back to view all, it will say, hey, about me is our front page.
Yes, it does. It does. Yeah.
And
But I don't
then,
want it to necessarily read about me. I think actually you can change
yeah,
it
you
and
have
say,
to, you have to edit it then, so it says home.
Oh, are the title attributes used by screen readers or?
I think they are.
Oh, okay.
I think they are actually. So you would probably do this. Okay.
Yeah. Well, the text
then
already
what I
says
could
home,
do,
so
in theory,
it will be
is-
read.
And what I could do is, in theory, add the about me.
Okay.
In this case, yes, you're right. I have the about me as my homepage, but here I've sort of tricked it and said home. So whatever the homepage is, right? In this case, it is the about page, but I wouldn't. So this is the front page, but if I changed it from the about page to something else, then that would probably change. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's
Okay.
like another hierarchy, right? You have like home at top and then it all.
No, I wouldn't have, I wouldn't even, not necessarily, no.
Oh,
No, home is on the same level. This is all on the same level of the hierarchy. This is all top level.
okay.
Yeah. And Dave, to your question is the category is not necessarily the same as a tag. You wouldn't necessarily put in a tag that is the same as the category. Does that make sense? It's an entirely
Right.
different thing.
There are different ways of classifying
Yes,
something.
there are different ways of classifying.
And Morton Rand Hendrickson has a great example that he at least used to use, and he may still in his LinkedIn learning
Mhm.
videos, where he says, think about organizing your closet.
Yes.
And you know, I mean, I organize part of my closet by color, but before I do that, I organize it by like, what is it? So like the dresses are here and the trousers are there and the shirts are here.
Right.
And so those might be your categories.
Right.
And
Because they can't belong in another category.
right. And your
The dresses can't belong to the pants.
no. And then your tags might be for color, if you want to organize them that way, or by size, or by season, or whatever. It's and this is part of why people then invent custom taxonomies for things that you need to classify in multiple ways. But yeah, the categories and the tags are meant to be different ways to classify things.
Correct. Okay. I think you'll see in just a minute. Let me see if I can get through the rest of this. So categories, these are random sort of things that are related to each other, but you would not necessarily see on the same site. I've just given you a bunch of examples. Okay. So education is a category, and under it, there are 3 subcategories. So what you see here is education, and then journal, learning management systems, and WordCamps. But you notice that they are slightly indented. which means that under posts and categories, which I'm going to open here, you'll notice that education, journal, learning management systems, and WordCamps, these are, because of that little dash, they are actually a subcategory in the database in WordPress itself. You're telling it that these are sub items of education. They fall under a larger umbrella called education. Okay. So when you create the categories based on the menu that you've done with your little post-it notes, if you have a subcategory, you want to make sure that you just don't leave it to the menu to figure that out. Put it here. Okay, so for example, we were talking real estate earlier. I'll just create one. Okay, so let's assume, again, this site is about a bunch of stuff. So the main category could be about real estate. Fair? It doesn't have a parent category, and I'm going to add that. So now I have a real estate category where I talk about real estate. Let's just say one of the subcategories that I could create is about townhouses, and the parent category is real estate. And you'll notice now that it becomes this subcategory. Now, why would I do this? Well, one of the biggest reasons is because when I go back to the menus and I reload this, actually, first of all, I'm going to save this. Because right now, if you go to my site, you notice I made those changes and I reload this, nothing's going to happen. You have to make sure that you save the menu before you navigate away from this. Otherwise, your changes will not take effect. So now if you go here and you refresh, you will see the home, about me, and contact. Okay, so far so good. When I go back here now and I reload this, and I've created this lovely real estate category for us, when I go under categories, you'll notice that there is a real estate category, and I could just add that. There's no harm in that. But I could also create a sub item called townhouses. But look what happens when I add this to the menu. It's put them on the same level of the hierarchy. And you don't want that. You've already thought this through. You've actually created the structure already. You don't even have to think about it now. No, that actually is a sub item of real estate. So I'm going to hold on to this. I'm going to click and hold and just watch what happens. Got it? Oh, Sandy's liking that. I can tell. Yay. So now I have this category called real estate and a sub item of that category called townhouses. Before I save the menu, I want to also give you one other pointer, a couple of pointers. Home should almost always be at the left side of the menu. About is typically the next item. Not always, but that our brains have been trained that way. Does that make sense? And contact is usually at the far right. When you go to a website, think about it for a second. The first thing that you typically see is home. The next one you usually see is about us, about me, about whatever. And then the last thing that you see is contact. So all I've done,
except for all the people who bury their contact link under their about menu, which makes me want to hit them.
drives me nuts. Drives me nuts. Anyway, so I'm going to save this menu now. So when I go back to the About Me page, you see that I have a home link. I have an About Me link, real estate, and then townhouses is a sub menu item. And then contact. And this little plus, because of the type of theme it is, it's telling me that there is a menu item underneath it. Does that make sense? Questions about that so far? I'll complete it if you want me to, but in the meantime, if you have other questions, by all means.
Real quick, this is there's only supposed to be 3 menu items at the top level.
No, 3 clicks.
Oh, sorry.
No, no, that's absolutely fine. You've got the right question. 3 clicks to where you need to be, and no more than 5 to 7 items in your top menu. And if you follow this sort of methodology, you'll notice that 3 items are already taken up by the most common things that you want to put at the top of your website: home, about, and contact.
Stick whatever.
So that
else
leaves you 4 slots to put anything else into.
Okay.
Does
Awesome.
that make sense, Nick?
Yeah, got it.
So you really got to prioritize it.
And this is the key. This is
and
exactly
this is so much fun when you're working with the clients where every department wants to be on the top level of
That's
the
right.
menu, and
That's
they
right.
want their stuff to be on the home page.
So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add a couple of these, and this is where you really got to think now, okay, what is most important to the people visiting my site to have in that top menu? And again, these particular things that I have on here are not related at all. But what I'm trying to show you is that whatever's in the top menu, the sub items are related to it, but they have almost like their own containers. So let me show you what I mean here. Okay. I'm just going to quickly go through this. And I'm going to do the martial arts one. Okay, and it's just added a whole bunch of stuff. But because I've already thought about this, I know what the structure is. Okay, and I've done this a few times, so I'm going to speed this up a little bit. So education has 3 sub items: journal, learning management systems, and WordCamps. Under fun, I have Doctor Who, That a Baby, and Wonder Woman. And under martial arts, I have karate and kabuto. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's it. That's all I'm allowed. Now you'll notice that I didn't put in Ireland and Galway. So that either has to go under something else or it doesn't belong here. And this is the key, ladies and gentlemen. This is the money shot. If whatever it is that you're putting on your site, because you've thought about the categories, you've thought about what your content really is important to your clients or to who it is that's visiting your site. If the content, and I know that I've said before that, you know, it's not etched in stone and all that stuff. The fact is, if it doesn't belong in one of these things, like you've posted one item like Ireland and Galway that doesn't suit anything that you've planned out, why is it there? Okay. You've thought this through. You know what content you really need to put up there. You've now run out of space. So which is more important? Education, fun, martial arts, or Ireland and Galway? Your choice. But now you really have to think about how this is organized. But let's say, for example, that I think that Galway and Ireland, because I went there and it was fun for me to do, that might actually belong. And I know that this is not, you know, I would normally go in the back end and change the category structure, but to speed this up a little bit, I'm going to add those to the menu, but I'm going to take Ireland and put it up here under fun. It's not wanting to go where I want it to go. And then Galway is actually a sub item of that. So fun, Ireland, Galway, 1, 2, 3. I don't go any deeper than that. Make sense? So if I save this menu, because I don't want to lose anything now, and I'll explain everything in a second. So now when I go back to my home page, this is what we have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items. Under real estate, I have townhouses. Under education, I have journal, learning management systems, and word camps. Under fun, I have Doctor Who, That a Baby, Wonder Woman, Ireland, and a sub-item of that called Galway. And then under martial arts, I have karate and kabuto, and then your contact page. Nowhere here does it say, this is a page, this is a post, this is a category. It doesn't matter to the user. Okay? The user doesn't care whether it's a page or if it's a post or a category. They just want the information. This is why I dislike the use of the term blog, right? It doesn't tell me what it's about. It tells me what it is. Here, I'm telling you what this stuff is about. Doesn't care whether it's a page or a post or a category. It's telling you what it's about and what you want to find. So let's say that Sally comes to my site and she goes, you know what? I really don't give a damn about real estate. I want to see some fun stuff. Then she can literally just click on here. And under that, there's a category called fun. And everything under here will be one of those items. I can put a post into fun without putting it in one of the subcategories. There's no problem there. But because I have programmed WordPress in categories to say Doctor Who is a subcategory of fun, that if I put something in the subcategory called Doctor Who and not in fun, it will still post it here. Does that make sense? But it's giving it a further categorization or a further specialization, if you will. Okay, does that make sense? So if I was then to go here and say under fun, go to That a Baby, the category is That a Baby, but you'll notice that it's not showing any of the posts that are under Doctor Who or Wonder Woman. It's filtering. It's only showing the stuff that I've told it to show because it is a subcategory of fun. So let me show again, under Doctor Who, it will only show the posts that are related to Doctor Who. It's not showing That a Baby or Wonder Woman or anything else. It is just showing the post called Doctor Who. Does that make sense? That is ultimately the beauty of this. And this is all built in to WordPress. There is nothing here that I have shown you that is not built in from a fresh install of WordPress. It's just how you use it. That's it. Okay. Does that make sense? Now, I know that I noticed that there were some questions in the chat. I haven't had a chance to read through them, Sally. Is there anything that I need to?
I think we can wait for further discussion on that,
all right.
so we can
So
move ahead.
Okay, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to quickly show you the case study that I was hoping to sort of toy around with. And I know that we probably have about 10 minutes left. Let me see how quickly I can do.
I can stay longer, but
Okay,
officially
no, that's fair.
we stop at 3 and some people
Yeah,
may need
no,
to.
that's absolutely fine. No problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to Miro and see what happens here. Okay, can you guys see this Miro board? Okay. These are based on the items on my case study that I'm going to show you really quickly. The case study is a bed and breakfast in a small town called Brockville, Ontario that I went to and I stayed at. And yesterday I was having breakfast there after having a wonderful evening at this B&B. And, you know, we were chatting. They said, what do you do? I said, I'm a web developer. Do you mind looking at our site? And do you mind giving us some critique on it? I said, absolutely, no problem. And the first thing I noticed was their menu. I will give you the link for their current site, which is not built on WordPress, but that's okay. We can still use this as an example. Okay. All of these items here, or most of these, I didn't use all of the items off of their menu, but these are most of the items that are from their menu that we would probably use in a hierarchy or not. So here we're using an existing site to try and figure out, okay, what is the best way to drive traffic through our website to guide them to the information they need? Okay, I'm going to go through this a little quick. So first of all, yes, you are going to need a home. Okay, and I'll recategorize or change the color as I go. Okay, our rooms, would you call this static or would you call this dynamic?
It's a house. So how many rooms is it going to ever change, add or remove?
Yeah,
Sandy, what do you say?
static.
So it's probably a
Page.
page, correct. Okay. Menus. You're probably only going to have one menu, right? Like either that or it's just going to be like breakfast and dinner.
But they can
If so, it might change
change.
occasionally. Sure. But is it time sensitive necessarily? Like tomorrow it's going to be this or tomorrow, maybe, but again, it's probably going to follow a routine, right? So that to me would probably be still a page. So what I'm doing at the moment, sorry, I should put home up here. What I'm doing right now is determining whether these are categories or whether these are pages. So we're not actually structuring the menu yet. We're not there. All I want to do is figure out, are they static or dynamic? So about us, static or dynamic?
Static.
Static, correct. Getaways?
The places that you want them to go to that are nearby, is that what this is? They're not going to, or how often are they going to change?
Right. Not much.
Yeah.
So they're probably going to go over here. Okay.
Yeah.
These are probably things like packages or things that they would offer, like a wedding package or something like that, like a romantic getaway for a weekend or something of that nature, right? They're probably not going to change all that much. And even if they do, they're going to have one or the other. They're going to have like winter packages and, summer packages or whatever the thing is. Our artists. Now to give you some background, they actually have artwork throughout the place that is all for sale from local artists. Now, what do you think? Static or dynamic? Now, they're not necessarily going to sell those items on the site. We're taking the whole idea of e-commerce out of the equation for the moment. Just keep it simple. They are highlighting various artists throughout the time that they have there and whatever art they may have in there.
So they rotate, they change, they maybe replace each other. It depends a little bit on like how many you have and how much you want to change, and do you still want to see the past ones? But I would think the artists themselves were dynamic, and you would want
I
to set
agree.
up the top level page to see who, to show whichever ones were, happening now.
Probably, yeah. So to me, that feels more dynamic, depending on how we structure it. Right? Does that make sense? So far, so good? Okay. Our property. Now, this isn't just the rooms that they have available. This is about the rest of the house or the rest of what they have there. Like they have a beautiful pool. I will tell you this, if you ever go to Brockville, you guys have to go there. So this is about the rest of the property, like what the dining room looks like, what what facilities they have available, things like that. Again, how often is that going to change?
When they redecorate, when they remodel,
Sure.
but
But then you would probably, fun fact, probably write a post about the renovation that you've done
yeah.
at a specific time and then reference the page that you're talking about.
Yeah.
Right. So our property is going to be a static item, right? Now they have something called activities. I've renamed that on the site, or the example that I'm going to do. I just called this things to do. Okay. And I've sort of grouped them all into one, but one could argue that they could be things to do, places to go, things to see, whatever. So they could be broken down further, okay? But for the purposes of our demonstration today, I've sort of lumped them all into a single piece, right? What do you think? Would they be more static or dynamic? So that could be places to see, things to do, live music, events that are going on, things like that.
Definitely
Restaurants.
dynamic because
Dynamic?
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. That's what I did. I put it all over here. Okay. Now, they have something called videos and reviews. My argument is those should not be menu items. How many of you would actually go to a page specifically dedicated to reviews when you could take those little testimonials or little pieces and put them in other areas? Almost like little quotes or indentations or little things that are spread throughout the rest of the site,
I totally agree and think it's
Yeah.
stupid for review.
right?
Yes.
So I'm leaving those out. I am not going to include these at all, because to me, videos doesn't tell me what the video is about. It tells me what it is. Same thing with reviews. Those are items that can be put in other areas. Like, for example, you might have a video about the property, right? So you could put a little bit of text and then say, oh, this is a video about, what the pool looks like. And, this is a tour of the property or whatever, right? So this, to me, like these two items, I don't think should even be considered as menu items or even categories or pages or anything else. Okay, make sense? Okay, so I'm going to go through this pretty quick. So now we have our stuff. We know that these two items here are going to change color. I'm going to make them categories. Okay, that's all I did. I just changed the color so that I know what categories they are. Make sense? Okay, so now I have to construct the menu. Oh yeah, we're missing something.
Contact.
Aha, wonderful. You've been thinking.
They
And
really,
that is definitely a page.
they really didn't have a contact page?
They did. I may not have put it on here, to be fair.
Oh, okay.
And I think that they called it something else. Okay, so yeah, to be fair, they may have actually had it on there, because I know that they actually did. I think it was actually buried under About Us, which is exactly what Sally said was a pain in the butt. So let's go with that. So now we construct the menu. Okay, so now we can't go more than 3 items deep, and we can't have more than 5 to 7 items on our top level. So if we take the home, the About Us, and the contact, we only have 4 slots, if you will, left in our main menu. Okay. So I'm going to cheat a little, and I'm going to go through this a little quick. Okay. So I would probably do something like our property. And again, we can change the names of these a little, but for the moment, I would rather see the property and then the rooms, rather than the rooms and then, like, you start on the outside of the house, right? And if I like what the amenities are, then I decide which room I'm going to go to. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
That's how I would use this. So I might put our property, and then our rooms becomes a sub item of that.
Yeah.
Okay. So now I have 3 slots left. Okay. I might do the getaways just for sake of where we have this here. I might put that About Us, under About Us. right? Because it's a combination of the menus, it's a combination of the room, the time of year. For the purposes of what we're doing, if I didn't want to get rid of it, that is probably where I would put it the best to me. Does that make sense? I might even have this as an item or blocks or whatever, like what Sally was talking on the home page. That's another possibility, right? But if I had to put it in the menu, that's where I would put it based on what we have here anyway. Does that make sense? Okay. If I had to put the menus up here, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then literally we could do our artists and things to do like so. This may not be the absolute best, but you don't want to bury things if you don't have to. Okay. If I had a total of 7 items up here and I had something else, then I might do more subcategories. So for example, I did have things to do, but remember how I said that there were like places to eat, places to visit, those kinds of things. Those would go as sub items to this. Does that make sense so far? Any questions about that? Okay. So really quickly, I'll jump over to and what I have done really quickly is appearance and menus. And guess what? I've created a 1,000 Islands, which is the name of the place, 1,000 Islands Bed and Breakfast. Okay. And this is now a blank menu. Our property, about us, menus, getaway packages, our rooms. I'm going to use my contact page only because I didn't have one created for them. Okay. I think that was all of the ones for them, I think. And I'm going to use the about me, which was my homepage, as a placeholder for home. Okay. Because I didn't create a specific homepage. You would normally design a homepage with whatever pieces you want on there and then create that as the homepage. It just so happens I haven't. I just have an about me page. So I'm going to call this and change this to be home. Okay. Just for sake of expediency, as it were. Okay. So then I have a category called things to do. Right. And I don't think I created the artist one, but you get the idea. Okay. So the things to do one moves up here. Sorry, that goes here. So our property, our rooms becomes a sub page of that. About us becomes the second item. Okay. That is actually the about us for them, not me. It's for them. Menus, getaway packages, I think we had under about us, if I recall, right? So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 items in the top level and no more than 3 levels deep. So far, so good. So now when I go back and I go to the home page, it should reload to that. Why is it not? Ah, I know why. Does anybody else know why it's not changing? Other than Sally, because I know she knows. Sorry, Marilyn, you're muted. Do you know why? Sally, anybody? Sandy, anybody?
Did you save it?
I did.
Okay.
But that's absolutely the first thing you check, 100%. The second thing you check is what location I have assigned that menu to. Right now, it's not assigned to any location. So I have to change it. So I'm going to say that it's not going to be the East Bay one anymore. It's going to be the 1,000 Islands main menu. And now I'm going to save those changes. When I go back here, okay, what you're seeing underneath here, this whole description is also based on the theme. When I am in the categories, posts, and then categories, under where'd it go here? Things to do. You see this little description here? When you create the category, there's a description field. This theme happens to show that description in the menu. It's not very good at it, but it does. So if you wonder where that's coming from, that's where it's coming from. So now I go to home. I see their homepage, which it happens to be my about page. If I go to about us, I now see their about page, who they are, what they do, why they do what they do. And I've just taken a small excerpt from their website with their picture. Okay. And under that, you'll see that there's a thing about getaway packages. And then you go here and you can see all the information about that. I haven't populated it. If you go to our property, now you're seeing photos of their lovely pool and fire and all that stuff. And then under that, you would see the information about the rooms. Well, this is the room that I stayed in. It was absolutely amazing and lovely. And they're a great bunch of people to stick around with. And then you can go to the menus. Well, maybe they have sub menu. You may have sub items for breakfast, lunch, dinner, or packages even. Like you may say, if there's a wedding, contact us, whatever, right? This was my breakfast. Like it was just amazing. And they said, I just said, I'm not a big fan of bacon, so you don't have to give me that. I'd hate to see it go to waste. And I didn't even finish it. It was so big. And then before I left, when I was on my way out, I was taking some photos. They said, here, why don't you try one of these? And my God, the basil is just absolutely fresh, I had to say. So I had decided to take a photo of it. And this is just a thing of hors d'oeuvres that they served me as I was on my way out. Like I'd already paid my bill. I didn't have to do anything, but they're such lovely people.
Would you call that the full Canadian?
Full Canadian. It could be. It could very well be. And then under things to do, this is the trick. This is a category. Okay. Thousand Islands Brewing Company, Golden Age Comics and Collectibles, James King. Each one of these items are things that I either did, visited, ate in the area. They're not necessarily at the venue itself, but I can remember that when I got there, Siobhan took out this map and said, here are some great places to go and eat if you want. And there's, you have to go and visit this and you have to go and see this. So these are posts that have been created under a category called things to do. But again, you could subdivide those places to eat, events to attend, shops to visit, whatever. So each one of these, James King was a gentleman that I saw sing who was just amazing. And he did a really good job of this. This is just embedded from Instagram and it doesn't look right, but you can see here, I've just done this thing and I've given a link to his Instagram. I've told him where I saw it. So you can see that there is sort of a time sensitivity to this. I went and saw James King sing on Friday night. And this is where I saw him. So the subject is James King, but then there's a further thing about where I saw him, which would be Moose McGuire's. Now, maybe I've done a post about Moose McGuire's. Right now, that's going directly to their website, but I could just as easily put a link there to another post that I've done about Moose McGuire's. Do you see what I'm saying? So going back, I have, the Thousand Islands Brewing Company, where I went for dinner. They served a lovely, pita and hummus. Great. Maybe you've tried some of the beer, maybe you've tried, one of the beverages, whatever the thing is. And here I've said they have an amazing menu, and that links back to their menu on their site. The last one I want to show you is this one for Golden Age comics and collectibles. This is one of the main reasons I went, is because a friend of mine happens to own a comic store in Brockville. And I rekindled my love of comics. So I bought a bunch of stuff and spent a lot of money that I probably shouldn't have done so. But again, these are things that this V&B could put on their own site to drive traffic to other people, and showing that they know about the area, and showing that they have a love of their local businesses, right? And hopefully those businesses will then link back to them, and so on and so forth. So, they are big on local artists. They are big on live music, not just paintings, but this could be a big, big thing. And you could have posts on those local artists where you show a gallery. This is showing a gallery here, right? This isn't just a single photo. This is actually a gallery block, and just showing whatever it is that you want to show them, right? And then again, the contact page here is actually my contact, but you get the idea, right? It shows where the thing is and so on and so forth. Okay. Does that make sense to everybody? That is the really quick and dirty case study. I was hoping to do a bit more about it, but like I said, I know we've gone over time, so I appreciate everybody's time with that. Let me just quickly go back to the PowerPoint so I can give you the rest of the slides, which again, I will post on the website. And it's basically just a bunch of resources, okay, that I've got on there, which are some books and various things about how you think about this stuff, right? The one that really triggered all of this for me was a book called Information Architecture Blueprints for the Web. And they have an exercise in there called a card sort, which I've just turned into Post-it notes. Okay. And then there's these ideas of Don't Make Me Think and Evil by Design, which were absolutely amazing in terms of figuring out what drives people and the bit of the psychology behind it. So when I was teaching at Sheridan College, the first one was the book that they were using when I first got there. And over time, we started to use Don't Make Me Think and Evil by Design. They are amazing books. They're really light reading too. Like they're not heavy information architecture. And the last one there is my previous talk at WordCamp Rochester, where I basically went through what I did with you guys today, so that if it has the video as well as the slides and everything else that we've gone through today. And that's it. Yay.
All right.
All right.
Excellent.
I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and then if we need to put that back up, but we can do whichever one you want to do. But I will happily take any questions, but I appreciate everybody, sticking through the time for this, because it's been fun.
Yes, thank you. And I have to say there are some menus on some client sites that I've made that I'm like, she's got a really good point about that. I got to rethink that, and then I have to talk to the client about rethinking it. But
At least it's going yeah. So
but
I haven't had a chance to read through the chat, but I'm happy to go through any of those.
Yeah, but I know the video thing, like one of my clients insists on having a separate link for videos just because she thinks her clients are young enough that they're just going to want to look at videos.
But what are the videos about?
Her work. She's an artist and
Okay.
work doing the work. So
I have an artist who's actually doing very much the same thing. My suggestion.
Well, yeah, I
would
always,
be-
just like reviews, I always say pepper them throughout.
Right. So what I would rather do is put a post up about a particular piece of art. So let's say that they have a process that they go through, and this is one of the artists that I work with deals a lot in nature, right? So she does a painting about a bird. Great. So what you're going to do is you are going to do a post where you're going to have a little bit of text that talks about the, the particular piece or whatever it is. And then you're going to have a video underneath it that deals with that particular thing. Conversely, if they are an educator, then you would probably have a post about how you start a painting. I know nothing about this, so bear with me. You
Mhm.
might have a post about how you start a painting about a bird. You may have to do a base. You may have to do whatever. So the post itself is about the process, and the video gets put onto that page. Because if I just see a link that says videos, I don't know what all of those videos are. Am I going to scroll down the page to find out all these videos?
No.
Absolutely not.
No, but they all have tags. All the videos have tags.
But
and
again, am I going to go down a page that says videos to
I think-
find the one that I'm going to find?
Yeah, I think we're not the people. I think you and I are not the people, but because I'm always working with usability as far as like who is her target, and her target actually probably does actually want to go to a page and just look at a bunch of videos. And
But how do you know that?
because
Like, that's the question.
Yeah, because I've worked with her for so long and I know who her audience is.
Okay.
But I
But
mean,
who is her audience? Like when you say they want to see that, who is the audience? Who is the target?
the only thing I would recommend at this point is that there's a filter device, at least if she's going to have a video page, because she has so many, because there's so much
Right.
content on her site that they would get lost otherwise. You would never find them, and you wouldn't
That's
even
right.
know, hey, she did a TEDx talk. People wouldn't even know that she did a TEDx talk. So that's kind of a good thing to have. But because of that, I think there should be a filtering device above it instead of just this stupid thing it has. But since I didn't do the theme, this is
Mhm.
always a nightmare for me anyway.
So can I make a suggestion then? If she gives all these talks, like you're saying, that's probably what the videos are about?
They're all different. There's like
Okay.
how to's, there's like what
Okay.
it looks like when you work with the piece that she's done.
Mhm.
There's like an IMAX, there's a TEDx, they're all over the place because she's been
Okay.
working for quite a long time.
So I have a category, like, and this is one of the few times I break this rule.
Mhm,
Remember how I said that a post only belongs in one category?
mhm,
I have only seen once, and I use it because I can explain it.
mhm.
There's one time I break that rule. And that is because I have one category called WordPress and another category called speaking.
Mhm.
I have given talks that are not related to WordPress. And I have posts that are related to WordPress where I'm not speaking.
Mhm.
However, there are talks like this that I've given that are both speaking and WordPress. That is the only time I break my rule,
Mhm.
is that if the talk that I am giving is related to WordPress.
Mhm.
So I would argue, like you said, that if there is just a long line of videos and I cannot find what the topic is, a filter even is going to be more difficult to implement than actually putting those videos on individual posts and creating the categories for those videos.
Yeah.
So
Um,
you're actually categorizing the videos based on the topic of what the video is, because then you will get sort of a mixed medium, right? If the post itself is about a how-to that has a bit like 1 by 1 by 1, and it's not even a video, but you could have a tag called video, right? So if they're in that category called how-tos, and all of the related posts to that are in that one category, you could literally hit a tag called videos, and then you've got the videos that are how-to.
right. No, I
To
get it.
me, that makes a lot more sense.
Yeah, no.
Because
and-
I would bet you $100 Canadian that if you surveyed those users that you are talking about,
Mhm.
and you said to them, what kind of like, how would you find the video that you're looking for? Or what videos are you looking for? Or what content you're looking for? I can almost bet you that they will not just go to a page called videos, even if they've been trained, because they would go only because they've been trained to do that. And that's
Well,
not the
yeah,
right way to do it.
right. I mean, if you've
If
been
you
on the web
train
a
them
long
the
time, you
right
might be
way,
trained to look for blog,
Yeah,
but
it's the same thing.
Yeah, no, I
Because
totally,
now I've got to scroll all the way down to find the thing I want to find.
yeah,
That's
no,
not the way to do this.
yeah, and she still has blog and I've tried to talk her out of it for years, so, but
Send her to me. We'll
yeah,
have a chat.
she knows she needs to redo it. It's just, it's always balancing act,
Mhm.
but yeah.
And to be fair, I've actually had clients, and this is what I suggest. I've actually done a discovery session like this
Mhm,
for clients, and they've paid me $500 for it.
mhm,
Just this.
mhm.
Because it's not just about the menu, it's about content as a whole,
Yeah,
and
no,
about rethinking how you put your content out there.
right. Well, she's
Right?
probably
People
right.
don't care whether it's a video or a blog post or whatever. They care about what it's about.
Mhm, mhm.
And if you don't drive them to that, like I said earlier, if I have something called blog and everything in there is Italy, and I'm more concerned about Spain, and that's buried like pages and pages down, do you honestly think I'm going to read through that?
No, but
No, you're going to lose my interest and I'm gone.
right. But I think what I'm saying is that her user groups are either high-powered people who will read, but a lot of people actually just want to see because she's a visual medium person. So they just want to watch a video instead of reading about her. So the news usually has a mixture of both because it's both. But yes, I would agree. And I think at this point, most of the people are just finding her on social anyway.
And that's
yeah,
fine.
well, and you
And
might,
that's fine. But again, it's like, what videos are they watching?
Mhm.
Are they going to go there and specifically look for how-to videos? Are they specifically going there and looking for speaking videos? Like, they're not just going there to watch videos.
Yeah.
They actually do have
No, no, no.
something in their heads that drives them to what content it
yeah.
is.
Right.
I think one thing to do here is like, okay, if most of my fans want to watch video in preference to reading,
Mhm.
then what that means is not so much that you put a thing called videos in your list, is that you put videos in all the things.
Right,
That's
right.
right.
You know, a video on in
Exactly.
each post or on each page.
And
Or,
again, then the posts are then put into categories about what the thing is about,
Right, right, right,
not necessarily about what it is.
right.
Because if I just see something called videos and I go to that page and I see a long list of videos,
Right.
how do I find what it is that I'm looking for? To me, that is completely disorganized.
Uh-huh.
So, but if you had a
Right.
bunch of posts, like you said, Sally, that has videos in the post,
Mhm.
and each of those posts is then categorized on how to, on speaking, on whatever it is that she talks about. They still have the videos, but at
Mhm.
least now I'm seeing the videos or the posts that are related to what it is that I want to find.
Mhm. Yeah.
And if honestly they don't care, well, that's when you have your home page that has whatever the pieces are at the top that you want to drive your traffic to, like your calls to action. And then you have a block that shows the blog, very much like you would have on a default WordPress website, that just shows across the board posts that have everything in them.
Mhm. Yeah.
And they can start there. That's not a problem.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
Marilyn is asking, can you do both posts and video and a list of video only? I wouldn't bother. It's a waste of time. I honestly think that having just something called videos is a waste of time
Mhm.
because it doesn't tell me what it's about.
Right. And also like on her homepage, we feature a few videos and I think
That's fine.
those cross link into wherever the content is. So,
Right. But instead you could still embed the videos. There's nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
But what you could do is instead embed the post onto the homepage as like a pinned post or
Mhm.
whatever that thing is.
Right, right.
Because
Mhm.
then because here's the thing, just driving them to a video, and this is where the SEO part comes in,
Mhm.
right? If you just have a single page called videos, then
Mhm.
all they're doing is going to that one page, watching a video, watching a video, watching a video. But
Right.
what if there's a post that has a little bit more text to it
Mhm.
that tells you a little bit more about the post, that tells you a little bit more about where it was presented, when it was presented. And
Mhm.
there's a download on that page that has like a worksheet or whatever that thing is.
Mhm.
That is going to be far more searchable
Right.
by SEO
Mhm.
than just a video hidden on a page somewhere.
Yeah. No, I totally agree.
So to Marilyn's point about doing both, yes, but I don't see the point.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
you will find a category, to be fair, on my page called speaking. Okay, because that's one of the big things that I do. So you want to see all my speaking spots? Fine, you go there and you can see, because maybe you want to hire me, or maybe you want me to speak at your local WordPress meetup. I don't know, but you want to see what I do. And as a matter of fact, I actually went for an interview once for the local district school board. And I said, one of the questions I asked them is, why me? Why would you hire me for this position? Why do you think I needed to be interviewed for this position? And they said, honestly, because we found a video of you giving an interview
Mhm.
and we could hear you speak. Your enunciation was fine, but like all these things, because part of the job was going to be going out and educating people on technology and all these other things.
Mhm.
But they probably would not have found that if it was just on a page called videos,
Right, right.
because it
Yeah.
may not necessarily have my name or anything else. It doesn't give context,
Uh-huh. Mhm.
right? So,
Right.
so to me, though, each of those videos should be embedded on a post
Mhm.
for whatever the thing is, even if it's just a one line that gives context to that video, because they will
But they,
become far
but
more.
they actually are. That's how this theme is built, is that every video is a post. So they all have
Great,
their own post.
great. So
Oh.
categorize the post instead of categorizing them as video,
Mhm.
categorize them about what they're about
Mhm.
based on the exercise that we've just done.
Mhm. Mhm.
Does that
Yeah,
make sense?
yeah,
Okay.
totally. Mhm. I can't wait to redo our site anyway.
Yeah. Well, ping me if you need some help with it, like, let me know. But like I said, sometimes this takes hours.
Mhm.
You know, this is not a simple process.
No.
And the thing is, what you don't learn until you've gotten to the end of it is what actually belongs on the site and what doesn't,
Mhm.
right? Because knowing that you have these constraints of the 3-5-7 rule, if I can't fit it into that menu somewhere that makes sense, then does it belong here in the first place?
Right. And I think,
If it's just one blog post that has nothing to do with anything that is driving my traffic, get rid of it.
mhm.
If it doesn't bring me money, or if it doesn't,
Right.
go towards the overall goal, ditch it.
Mhm.
Right. So this isn't just about taking what you've got there and putting, no, it's actually about focusing. At
Mhm.
the end of the day, that's the lesson here, is actually this does a huge, huge focusing on your content, and then can direct you the way you want to go.
And, oh, so Miro is free. I'm looking at the Miro site.
Yes, it is.
That's nice.
For up to 3 boards, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. And that was the tool that I was using for the
Right.
Post-it notes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
There are a number of other free tools that will
Yeah.
let you do that type of
Mhm.
a thing, but
Yeah.
yeah, it can be very useful when you've got a group of people somewhere live and they're actually like writing stuff on post-it notes. And then, because I've done this for, and I can't even remember like exactly what the exercise, but I was on a board once where we did this every year when we were kind of thinking about
Right.
the year coming up. And we would have a whole collection of post-it notes, and then we would start grouping them, and we just had them stuck on, a wall or a picture window or someplace big enough to do that. And the energy of having a bunch of people involved and having people provide feedback, is good as long as you're not in one of those situations where there's, there's so much politics at work that people are like personally invested in where their stuff is in the hierarchy. And, everybody wants to be the more important. And, you need somebody who can bring folks back to what are we most trying to achieve as an organization and what do people most want? Because you just cannot have everything
Right.
there, but it is it's work sorting that stuff out. And so, yes,
Mhm.
that's why they offer, PhDs in information architecture and
That's right.
information science and how to
Yeah.
organize stuff. If you're a librarian and you
Mhm.
have hundreds, possibly hundreds of thousands of books.
Mhm. Mhm.
So the artist page didn't show up just because you didn't have content in it?
I didn't have an artist category for the actual implementation part.
Hmm,
I hadn't created one yet. No.
yeah, okay.
Sorry, Dave, you had a question. Sorry if I missed it, but what is a good user interface for allowing the user to select posts with a particular tag? Great question. I will show you and hang on. Here. So, can you guys see the screen okay? Yeah, okay. So if I go to, you know what, I'm just going to cheat. I'm going to go to actually one of the posts because I didn't actually create posts for the one that we were dealing with. So I'll just pull up, yeah, I'm going to go to the Doctor Who one. Okay. So this is one of the Doctor Who posts that I had.
Mhm.
And you'll notice that there are all these tags at the bottom here. So if I want to see all the ones that are David Tennant, I would click on that and it would show these are David Tennant tags, items. So Elisa, that's how you would probably use the video thing. Okay. Does that make sense?
Oh, I wasn't asking the question.
No, I know. I'm just using your original thing as an example of
Oh,
how
yeah,
you,
no, I know how to do that. I've
yeah.
been doing
Okay. All right.
Yeah. I mean, this is why people sometimes put, tag clouds in their,
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
widget areas or
Yep.
so if you want to, a fairly compact place where people can see all of those topics at once.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Mhm.
or, why one of the available widgets for since the dawn of time has been the category list.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you will sometimes need secondary tools to help people navigate if you have a
Mhm.
lot of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm.
trying to, putting the work in to pare it down as much as you can and organize it in order of importance
Yes.
to just keep people from
And
being overwhelmed and going away because it's too confusing.
and you brought up a very good point. By default, out of a fresh installation of WordPress, categories is one of the widgets that is put into the sidebar. Don't use it. Don't do it. Because all it's showing is the categories. And remember what I said before, the user doesn't give a damn whether or not something is a page or if it's a post or a category. They just want to see the information that you want them to see, right? You need to guide them down that path. So categories, for example, will not show about us. It will not show the contact page. Build the menu yourself and show it in the order in which you want it to show. That's exactly why I go through this. So putting a menu in your sidebar is okay. Like a secondary menu or whatever it is that you want to show, but do not show the category widget. There is no reason for it in my book. None.
It's vestigial. It's kind of leftover from the days when things worked in a certain way. Just-
if you're running a like a hobby site just for the fun of, fine. But if you're running this for your business, and that's 95% of the sites out there, then you need to guide the user in the direction you want them to go. And if they cannot find what they're looking for, they will leave. That's it. So with the user interface, you show the user must first find an item with a particular tag, and then they can find the tag name. I'm wondering if there should be a page with it. Oh, no, do not put a page with all the tags listed. Nobody's going to visit it. Tag cloud, maybe. Maybe. But again, if you guided them in the right direction to what they want to see, then the tag should be a secondary search to the main categories. Does that make sense, Dave?
And you should always have a search.
Yes.
And you should
100%.
have a search that will surface words that come up in tags.
Correct. Correct.
But
But the
it
tag
is,
should be secondary to the categories.
yeah, you know, there is one good SEO reason to have a tag cloud somewhere not too distracting, that shows up, you know, in your footer or your sidebar or someplace, because it's providing the search engines with all those nice little links to
Mhm.
everything else. So you've got a lot
Yeah.
of internal link mapping there, but it's also that the tags themselves are meant to be, yeah, a group of things to classify. And if you have organized things by topic in a certain way, and the things are sometimes pages and sometimes posts and so on, then you want to, you know, be able to, you want to actually construct something that will display things irrespective of their type that are relevant for that.
Let me see if I can pull up a tag cloud for you. Go away. Mhm. No. That's a tag cloud. Okay. So what this is doing is aggregating, and the larger the word is, the more posts that have that particular item. Okay, so you can see that Brockville is one of the bigger ones because I created those posts that have Brockville in them, right? Because of the location. Okay, does that make sense? Any other questions? Have I blown your minds enough now? This is a lot for a Sunday afternoon. Come on.
Yes, it is a lot, and it is almost a 3:45. So
Right.
we
right.
should wrap up. Thank you so much, Shanta,
Pleasure, my
and
pleasure.
everybody else for participating. And I will share the link to the recordings and transcript and so on. When it comes to me, Zoom will take a few minutes to
Mhm. Yeah, of
process it,
course.
and I'll let you all know.
Mhm.
Yeah, Shanta, feel free to do with the recording what you wish.
What I'll do is I'll put that along with my slides and the link for all of this information back onto the meetup once I've processed it all, so that you can get the slides, you can get the recording, all of that kind of stuff. I'll put it in one nice little place on that event.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you very much for putting up with me for this long.
Oh, Dave says Shanta never answered my first question. Which was the first one, Dave? Was that in the oh, about the hamburger menu?
Right. I'm sorry, I almost forgot. In answer to your question, you don't necessarily have to mimic your mobile on your desktop. If you have the real estate, use it. That's my short answer.
Yeah, I've had clients who want to, you know, hide their main menu because they think it looks cool to only have the But you're making it harder for people to get places if they
Correct.
can't see the menu.
Correct.
You know, the only reason it's collapsed on mobile is because there is so little space. And so, yeah,
And
if
people are
you,
used to doing that on a mobile one. If you do that on a desktop, people think that you're not so much cheating, but that you're being lazy. And to me, it makes more sense to use a responsive theme that will be able to tell whether or not you're on a mobile device or not. And if you're on a desktop, it should show me all the menu items that are there. Because otherwise, to me, I always feel it looks cheap. Not even just lazy, it just looks cheap. So if you're guiding, the whole point is to guide the user, use the real estate that you have available. On a mobile device, you may not have all of those things available, right? But on a mobile device, people have been trained, once again, to see, like, say 2 or 3 menu items on a mobile, and then the hamburger menu will then bring them to everything else,
yeah.
like
And
contact
the
and
people
whatever.
the people who use your site from a mobile device may not be the same people who use your website from the desktop. And some of the
Correct.
people who visit your website from the desktop may not even own smartphones, may have no notion what those 3
Mhm.
what those, what the hamburger marks lines mean. So
Mhm.
yeah, it's like I've seen sometimes websites done by designers or artists, and they've got some really like cutesy, innovative way to navigate through the website. And it's like, okay, this looks cool to other designers, but it's completely useless to anybody who wants to find anything on your website because they see that and they don't know what to do.
Right. I'm just making a note to make sure that I do the video and the slides. And I also wanted to add that CPT talk to the original one, so that was it Nick, who we were having a chat with, will have all of that kind of info. Again, it may be a little bit above and beyond, but knowing what that can do may simplify what we're talking about for him, at least. Anyway.
Yeah, it's a lot when you're new to WordPress
It
to kind of
is.
have it
It
on
totally is.
dumped on you
Yeah.
at once. Although
Yeah.
if you already have a business and you may have done some organizing. For instance, if you run a store, you've organized your physical store in
Mhm.
certain ways and grouped things. And like the grocery store website, which I'll be on later today because I need food and I don't have time to go out, is they pretty much they will even say like which aisle. And you don't have literal aisles on your website, but it's where you're accustomed to looking for the thing in person. So if you're doing something where there is already an in-person analogy, it exists there, and that's the
Mhm.
way people are used to thinking of it.
Yeah.
That can be a good idea to mirror, and probably more important than mirroring your like desktop and your mobile.
Mhm.
Um,
And the best way to think about what, like, almost everything that I've talked about today, is to think about a newspaper. Right? You may have the home section, but it'll usually say, to continue, go to this section. You will not find that article. And if you think of the entire home section as your home page, but then all of those items belong in a particular section of the paper. Like that belongs in travel, that belongs in life, that belongs in sports. That sports article does not belong in travel. You can only have one. That's categories.
all right. All right,
Okay.
everybody, for your heroic persistence.
My
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Shanta. And yeah, the B&B sounds lovely. Travel. I remember doing that.
I
Uh,
know.
I'm not expecting any of that to happen in the near future, though.
Well, here's the thing. I think as of tomorrow, the borders are opening. That's what I was told. I don't know if it's been updated since, But rumor has it that the border is supposed to open tomorrow, I think.
Yes, yes, no, it's,
See how it goes.
yep, well, got a lot of personal constraints on it too. I was just out
Sure.
sick for a month, so I'm too busy
Yeah.
catching up. It's like, yeah, vacationing,
hear
not
ya.
gonna happen.
Mhm. Anyway, thank you, everyone. And like I said, if you need me, you guys know where to find me. I'll as soon as all that's available, I'll post a link back to that event specifically so that you can get all the good details.
All right, terrific. Okay, bye, everybody. Have a great day.
Bye, everyone. Thanks.